What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. So as many of you probably already know, the Fennec finally got a big nerf yesterday in a surprise patch from Raven. So basically what they did is they gave the Fennec a specific unique damage profile only when shooting armor plates. So across the entire damage range of the weapon, it has a unique different amount of damage that it does when you're shooting armor plates. And it actually works the way you'd expect it to this time, unlike the other ones I've covered in the past, where it does actually reduce the damage taken when hitting someone that has armor on. So that does increase TTK. It was a little bit annoying for me to get the programming done for this on TGD, but I did finally get it done and calculating correctly. So the Fennec on TTK charts on TGD will now show the correct values across the board for any health value. So now that they've done that, I wanted to go back in and cover the close range meta again. So this video is going to be a comprehensive guide to the Season 2 post-Fennec nerf close range meta. If you guys appreciate the work I do, don't forget to drop a like on the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you want to see more of my content. But let's jump into it. I'm pretty excited for this one. I worked really hard on this video. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the weighted TTK. This is the same thing that I said is going to be a new feature on TGD soon. I just have to finish it up, get the front end built for it. But basically what this does is it can weight TTKs in a specific way over a continuous curve that you define. So basically I took this curve here on the right, and it's essentially trying to estimate like where the most engagements happen for the weapons, because those are going to be the most important ones. So that gives you more of a like an important area for the TTK to be good. So basically this is the curve of where I assume the most important engagements happen. The x-axis is the distance to the target, and then y-axis is just how important it is. So from 0 out to about 2.5, I didn't think it was too important for an SMG. Obviously it is important, but like engagements in that range don't happen very often. So that's kind of how this works. And then from about 2.5 meters up to about 12 or 13 meters, it's very important. That's like the bread and butter of these aggressive SMGs, is to have really good time to kill in that range. And then it just tapers off down to not being very important out to about 20 meters. And then 20 meters and beyond isn't really considered in this. So I used that scaling for every weapon in the game, and then plotted out got out the values from that. So that's what this is over here, this column, this weighted TTK column. So right off the bat, you can see the SO14 Auto has the best weighted TTK in that first weighted range from 0 out to 20 meters. Unfortunately, it has absolutely atrocious sprint to fire, so it's really not going to be an option. It has much worse sprint to fire than virtually every other gun in the game, so it's not really going to be an option for an SMG, even though the actual time to kill is phenomenal. Chimera, this is another AR, so it has AR sprint to fire, but it has amazing time to kill, 525 milliseconds. TAC-V has the same 525 milliseconds and the same sprint to fire time, but the Chimera has much better mobility, movement, things like that than the TAC-V. So really, I think the Chimera is a better choice there if considering those as SMGs. Kastov 74U, again, this is another AR, 552 milliseconds, but it has AR sprint to fire again. And for the same reasons as the TAC-V, the Chimera has better mobility than the Kastov and just kind of fits in the SMG space a little bit better than the Kastov, but very similar weapons there. They're both viable as SMGs. STB556 is interesting. So the STB556 has SMG sprint fire times, even though it's an AR. I think they got the numbers swapped because the SMG version of the STB has AR sprint to fire, so I think they just accidentally mixed those up. So with that being said, it has the 573 millisecond weighted TTK over this curve. And then we start getting into the SMGs you would expect. So Vaznev 9K comes out at 590. M4 is stuck in the middle there. The Lachmann sub at 594. So Vaznev and Lachmann we already kind of knew were the best time to kill, and this kind of shows it here. So they both come out very similar, 4 milliseconds different. Obviously they have SMG sprint to fire time, giving them the two best time to kills, including sprint to fire, besides the STB in that in this weighted 0 to 20 meter range. Then we have the Kastov 762, so that's the AK-47. ISO Hemlock actually has a pretty good time to kill in the first range. These are both ARs, of course. PDSW 528, this is the P90, so that is an SMG. 716, including sprint to fire, so a little bit slower than the Vaznev and Lachmann, but not much. And it does have quite a bit slower time to kill in that first range, but because it has more range, this weighting, and including anything out past like 10 meters and just giving it less of a weight, that's why these longer range weapons have a little bit better numbers than you'd expect in this case, because I do think these engagements are important from 13 meters out to 20 meters. They're still important, but they're just less important because they're less frequent than around 5 to 10 meters. So that's why it's still included, just weighted less. and that's why the time to kill number here looks like it's a little bit better than it actually would if you were just looking at the first damage range on a chart. Vel 46 is also an SMG. This is the MP7 from Warzone 1, slightly slower time to kill than PDSW 528. And again, that's just because of the weighting, because the TTK in the first range actually is a little bit better on the Vel 46. And then the ones down here are just kind of not even really worth considering for a bunch of different reasons. MX9, Bass P, Fennec 45 after the nerf, Hurricane, Minibach, and X13 Auto. I included the X13 Auto just because, but those aren't really worth considering just because there's other better options. So with all that being said, I went through all the stats of all these weapons and pulled out the 5 weapons that I think are the absolute best. Let's talk about those. So what do I think the top 5 SMG weapons are for Season 2? I've got them right here on this TTK chart. This is the PDSW 528, Chimera, Vaznev 9K, Vel 46, and Lachmann sub. As far as time to kill goes, we went over those weighted TTKs, but I think it's important to look at this as well. So in the first damage range, you can see that the Lachmann sub in yellow and the Chimera both have the best TTK in that first range here, followed by the Vaznev, followed by the Vel 46, and followed by the PDSW. But just like you would expect, except the Chimera, the range tends to get a little bit longer for the ones that have worse time to kill. But you can see the Chimera, this orange line, has that amazing time to kill all the way out to 25.9 meters. I do have all of these built with what I think are the meta builds. We'll go over those obviously in a bit. But the Chimera just has crazy, crazy damage range, so it's going to beat all of these SMGs out past about 10, 12 meters. But in that first damage range, because it has AR sprint to fire time, even though we can reduce that with attachments, it's never going to get to the point that these SMGs are. So it's going to lose to SMGs up close if sprint to fire is important in both cases. But it actually has phenomenal ADS time, so it will win in situations where it's just ADS involved. But the PDSW, even though it has like the worst TTK in that first range here, almost up at 600 milliseconds versus the Lachmann sub Chimera down at 525. Even though it has worse TTKs, we're going to look at the numbers here in a second, and it has phenomenal movement speed. So it's going to have basically the best ADS movement, the best tack sprint, the best sprint, all those things. It's just it's the king of movement for sure. So we've got the the Vaznev and the Lachmann kind of are the two fast time to kill, shorter damage range SMGs. Chimera, fast time to kill, long damage range, but it does have AR sprint to fire time. And then between the Vel and the PDSW, the Vel has a little bit better time to kill, but shorter range and way, way worse movement. So I think they all kind of stand out for their own reasons, but I think those are the top 5, no question. So let's look at the statistics comparison real fast. We've got the PDSW 528, Chimera, Vaznev, Vel, and Lachmann sub. Looking at movement speed to start with, like I said, the P90, the PDSW 528 has the best movement speed. So ADS movement speed 3.8. Nothing else even touches that. The Lachmann sub is number 2 at 3.22. So dramatically faster ADS movement speed. And you can feel that when using it for sure. Looking at regular movement down here, 5.14 for the P90. And then the next fastest again is the Lachmann at 4.96. So there's some differences here where the Lachmann and the Vaznev just kind of trade blows. I think they're both the meta, but they trade blows on stats for different types of things. So if you want something that moves a little bit faster, Lachmann sub, but in a lot of other ways, the Vaznev is going to win there. If you want the absolute best movement, best mobility, the P90 is the way to go right now. Looking at ADS times here, like I said, the Chimera build that I actually have is faster ADS than all of these. They're pretty much all around 280 to 290 milliseconds of ADS, but the Chimera is all the way down at 224, and you can feel that when you're using it. It does have much lower bullet velocity though. That's the one downside, and you could swap one of the attachments that I've got on there to increase that bullet velocity up to, at least like 450 or so with a suppressor, but I think that the build I have is probably the best build. Fire rate's very similar between all of these. Damage per mag is very similar between all of these. So I think I've covered all the big differences between these weapons. All right, let's start going through the recommended builds. So P90, first thing we're going to look at is the laser. Always the laser is amazing. Minus 10.7% ADS time, minus 10% sprint to fire time. That's just hard to beat. If you don't want a visible laser, instead of using this 7 milliwatt, you can just use the 1 milliwatt quickfire. That will still give you a really nice benefit to your ADS time, almost as much as the visible red VLK laser, but just the laser is not visible and you don't get the sprint to fire benefit. So I'm going to put this one on there, but they're both great choices. Next up, P90 actually has some good barrels. So The barrel that I think makes the most sense here is the FTAC Series 9 14.5 inch. This gives you a 20% boost to your range, but it also helps ADS time, helps your bullet velocity 1.1%. That's negligible, slightly more recoil, and 55 milliseconds of ADS time is a pretty big penalty, but to be able to give 20% more range, help your ADS time, and help your movement speed, I think that's worth the 55 millisecond penalty to your ADS time. So that barrel is really, really valuable there. We don't really care about the muzzle. It's an SMG, and the recoil is really good regardless, so I don't really need to put anything on there to reduce that. And sometimes I do look at the X10RR 40, but because we have this barrel on there already, I don't think we need anything about damage range. It's just not worth considering there. So onto the stock. There's a few different stock options here. I think the hollow extended stock is the best. This is going to give you plus 0.27 meters per second ADS movement speed, and as well as sprint speed and tac sprint speed. The other ones can help with ADS time, but that's a huge buff to your ADS movement speed with really very few cons. I think it hurts your aiming stability in game, but for the ranges we're going to be using this, aiming stability is not really a problem, so I think that stock is an excellent choice. Integrated rails. So these are different options for the rail. This basically changes the optic mounting position. If you put these on there, I don't think you can use an optic, at least the integrated reflex rail you can't. But if you look at the benefits of this, you get a red dot sight. The sight picture is not great. I'll show you guys this in the firing range. The sight picture is not great on the integrated reflex rail, but it's better than iron sights for sure, and it gives you a huge buff to your movement speed. Every kind of movement speed gets a crazy buff here. Just hurts your recoil a little bit. So this is a great attachment, and it's unique to the P90, which I think is really cool. Last up, rear grip. This is that same grip I talked about in the Fennec video. So Bruin Q900 grip just helps with ADS, sprint to fire, hurts your recoil a little bit, but you're going to see that the recoil is completely fine on this. So I think those are the best attachments there. Let's go do the tunings, and then I'll show you it. All right, quickly going through these tunings. We got the barrel tuning here, tuned all the way towards aim walking speed. We want to maximize that as much as possible. Then on the horizontal slider, we're tuned to aim down sight speed minus 0.18 inches. On the laser, we've got minus 16.45 zeroing distance on the horizontal towards aim down sight speed. And then actually we're going to tune, I always tune towards sprint to fire usually on SMGs, but in this case, because this P90 has such good ADS movement speed, I do think aim locking steadiness is worth putting points into basically. So we're tuned plus 0.18 ounces up towards aim locking steadiness on the laser. For the stock, we've got, again, aim locking steadiness plus 1.868 ounces. And then on the horizontal, we're tuned towards aimed walking speed, minus 0.46 inches. For the rear grip, minus 0.42 ounces towards aimed on sight speed, minus 0.29 inches towards sprint to fire. And then for the rail, we are all the way towards sprint to fire on the horizontal, and then minus 0.26 pounds towards sprint speed on the vertical. But let's take this into the firing range. You guys are going to see how just crazy this ADS movement speed is. I mean, this is like reminiscent of the FFAR, if you remember that from Warzone 1. Like, I barely slow down at all when I ADS, and the recoil is still completely manageable. The aim locking steadiness is really good, so like I don't have much problem hitting that target. That's probably like 60 meters away. This is just a really, really competitive build, just purely because of how good the mobility is. Onto the Chimera. This thing is crazy. It has that really, really long damage range with ridiculous time to kill all the way out there to like 23, 24 meters. So let's do the build for it here. Laser, we definitely want the 7 milliwatt in this case because it helps with sprint to fire, and this has, like I mentioned earlier, has AR sprint to fire times, so they're going to be longer. So we have to do everything to reduce that. So we can't really, you could use the quick fire, but you really want to get those sprint to fire times down. So the Chimera actually has pretty good iron sights, so I don't think you have to use an optic on this. We don't care so much about recoil. You can't even put a muzzle on this until you change the barrel, which we actually will be doing. But even so, we're not going to put a muzzle on there. Underbarrel, again, tends to slow the gun down. We're building an SMG, so we don't really want to do that. Barrel here, we're going to go the 6.5-inch EXF Op 40. So this helps with your movement speed, ADS time, hurts your bullet velocity, and your vertical and horizontal recoil, and your range. The only one in that I'm concerned about is the bullet velocity, since it already has such bad bullet velocity, but the positives on this attachment are so good that I still think it's worth picking that. As for the stock, we're going to add the Ravage 8 stock. Again, we're just pushing this towards sprint to fire, or pushing this towards SMG values. So we want to bring that ADS time down, even though it hurts recoil. It does increase your movement speed, your sprint speed, and your tac sprint speed. Magazine, we have to have the 45 round mag just because we need those extra bullets. And then rear grip, standard Bruin flash grip. This is that same grip that helps a bunch with sprint to fire time and ADS time, hurts your recoil a little bit. So this is a really, really good build for the Chimera. It's just nasty. It's weird how good it is for an AR as an SMG. All right, onto the tunings for the barrel here. We've got minus 0.23 pounds towards aim walking speed, and then minus 0.17 inches towards ADS time. Laser, minus 0.39 ounces towards sprint to fire, minus 8.23 feet zeroing distance for the horizontal towards ADS time. For the stock, we've got all the way towards ADS time on the vertical, and then minus 0.23 inches towards aim walking speed on the horizontal. Rear grip, minus 0.68 ounces towards ADS time, and then minus 0.25 inches towards sprint to fire speed. And then let me take this into the firing range again real fast to show you this. Crazy fast ADS time, much faster than the other SMGs that are in this video, the builds. And that's something that I'll mention when I get there, but you can swap certain attachments if you don't like the ADS time. It's not like it's terrible, it's just a little slower than this. So this has not even close to the ADS movement we had on the P90, and any sort of movement's going to be quite a bit slower with this, just because it's an AR, first of all, and the P90 is also the best of the best for that. But you can see this has really good iron sights. I have no problem seeing the sight picture of the target. Recoil-wise, it's not bad. It's not great. It's not bad. It's definitely usable at normal SMG ranges. Like, I tend to worry much more about other stats than recoil, just because if I'm using this the way it's supposed to be used, then recoil is not going to matter too much. And this is definitely usable. Just a nasty build. It's gonna shred a lot of people with SMGs, especially when you're 10 to 23 meters. You're gonna beat every other SMG that's out there with this. Another weapon I want to add to this real fast is the Kastov 74U. This is very similar to the Chimera in that it kind of fits as a hybrid SMG AR. So looking at these time to kills here, Chimera kills a little bit faster, but the Kastov does have better bullet velocity, which is going to make up for that in some cases, and will have a better hit reg feeling when people are moving. They're very, very similar. I wouldn't say that Kastov is better. It's very similar. If we look at the actual table real fast, so Kastov 74U over on the right, it does have a little bit better ADS movement speed, very similar movement speed, better sprint speed, and similar attack sprint speed. So yeah, they're comparable. They're extremely similar weapons. So the build I would recommend for the Kastov 74U as an SMG would be that same TrueTac grip. I don't love the iron sights personally, so I use the Slimline Pro, the same laser as always, and then in this case we're actually not going to put a barrel on there. We're going to use the Atrazat stock just because it has the best movement bonuses. The VLK stockless mod obviously has better stats, but like I said, it makes me miss shots, so I just don't want that. If you're someone that can manage that, then yeah, use the VLK stockless for sure. And then last up, 45 round mag. Tunings for the Kastov 74U for the laser all the way to sprint to fire. Horizontal, we got minus 16.45 towards ADS speed. Optic, the penalties on the vertical felt really bad for moving it at all, so I'm just left that one alone. Close versus far, I tend to go close, but that's personal preference. Onto the stock. I actually haven't done this one yet, so let's just do it. We'll do it live. So ADS speed right there is getting some pretty big negatives, but I think like right there is perfect. Aim walking speed is the one we want for an SMG. So this one peaks right around in there. For the rear grip, we're going to do tuning towards ADS speed, minus 0.65 ounces, and then minus 0.32 inches for sprint to fire speed. And then let's take this into the firing range. You'll see this is very good, just like that, can't remember the name right now, but the other AR, the Chimera. Very similar to that. I'd say the Chimera might be a little bit easier to hit shots with. This one's pretty bouncy just because it has a slower fire rate. Chimera will be a little more forgiving for missed bullets because of that, but overall, very comparable builds between the two of them. They're both great, both very viable as a longer range SMG. As I'm going through this, I just want to remind you guys to like the video, drop a comment on the video, and don't forget to subscribe if you appreciate the work that I put into this stuff. This TGD is basically my life. Making these videos is a big part of that as well. And I've just been absolutely grinding on all of this stuff. So I'd appreciate it, but let's continue going through these weapons. On to the Vaznev. one of the absolute best SMGs, pretty much tied with the Lachmann sub. They just kind of trade blows and different stats. So starting off, rear grip, I love this grip. I put it on pretty much everything. This True Tech grip, minus 3% ADS, minus 15% sprint to fire. I personally think the Vaznev has terrible iron sights, and also your hand kind of gets in the way on like the left side of the barrel when you're holding the gun. So I would personally put an optic on there. I think it's worth the slot just to be able to have a good sight picture. Again, same conversation we've had before about lasers. If you want one that doesn't show up, that the enemy can't see, the Schlager, PEQ box, or if you want one that has sprint to fire help and a little bit better ADS time, but they can see it in the air, the FSS Olay or 0LE. I don't know if it's a 0 or an O. That's the best choice there. Then we don't really care about muzzle again. That's usually going to be the one muzzle that is good. I've talked about it. The X10 RR40 is very, very good attachment. 15% range, 30% bullet velocity. But in this case, you're going to see we have this barrel, the Kastov 24% range. So that's quite a bit more range, 10% more range than the X10 RR40 for the same ADS penalty. Bullet velocity is less important, in my opinion. So this barrel for sure is better than that suppressor. Being suppressed is nice, but I don't think it's necessary really in this game. You don't show up on the mini-map when you shoot. You do show up on the compass, but overall I just don't really think it's necessary to be suppressed. And then magazine. So obviously we need the 45 round mag here. So this is what I was mentioning. So ADS time on these builds is not great, and that's because I do tend to put either a barrel or the X10 RR40 on there just to extend that range out a little bit so you can beat those other SMGs in those cases. But if you don't like that and you want to swap that off, you can just remove this barrel, and in most cases it's probably going to be a stock that you're going to want to have. So if you didn't want that ADS time, I would probably put on the Atrazat stock here just for movement speed. If you wanted even better ADS time, you could do the Marquis R7. Either one, both viable choices here. I personally would probably go with this one just for the best movement speed. So that's going to give you much, much better ADS time, but you won't have the range that that barrel gives you. 24% range is a pretty valuable thing in a lot of cases. Just flash through the tunings real fast here. So for the Vaznev, this is the barrel, the Kastov 1, minus 0.34 pounds to aim locking speed, minus 0.23 towards aim down sight speed. For the laser, all the way to sprint to fire speed on the vertical, and then minus 32.90 distance on the horizontal. Optic, I tend to tune towards flinch resistance because if you get flinched and you miss one bullet, that's worth having something that helps with that. So I need to test this and see how much it's actually doing. It might be basically nothing. Most of the tunings don't do very much, but every now and then that might save you a fight. Close versus far, personal preference. Close tends to be better sight picture. Far tends to be slightly less visual recoil. I tend to like close a little bit more personally. For the grip, we've got minus 0.58 ounces towards aim down sight speed on the vertical, and then minus 0.15 inches towards sprint to fire speed on the horizontal. And then let me take this into the firing range real fast. Again, the ADS time you can see is a little slower, but it's not bad. It's doable, and I do like that extra damage range that I'm going to get. The recoil is pretty nice on this. I don't really have much trouble hitting the meter. It's probably like 30 meter target or something. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid build. Let's do that swap real quick. So if you are someone who, like I said, doesn't like that ADS time, I would swap off this barrel for the Atrazat stock. So with this, if you tune this, I'm going to go towards ADS speed. So ADS speed peaks right there, and then aim walking speed will go towards aim walking speed. So right in there. So that'd be the tuning for the Atrazat stock. Last up, the Lachmann sub. I'm not going to do a build for the Vel because I think the P90 just kind of beats it in pretty much every way. So we're just going to stick to the Lachmann here as the last one. The Lachmann has good iron sights, so this is personal preference. What ends up happening is that there aren't that many attachments that are great on this weapon. So I still run an optic even though it has good iron sights. And I'll leave it off for now so we can maybe look for another attachment. But there's really just not that many great options on this. So same laser choices here, either quickfire or the VLK laser. They're both good options. Ammunition, muzzle, not really interested in those. Muzzle, again, this one's pretty good. And because this gun doesn't have the best choices outside the muzzle, I do think the X10 RR40 is going to be the one that I would probably pick here. It has decent barrels. So for the barrel, the one that I like the most was the L38 Falcon. This is going to be minus 3.5% ADS time, hurts your bullet velocity and your recoil, but helps your movement. I didn't really like the Lachmann pulsar as much just because it hurts that range. It's going to take away most of the range gains we got from using the suppressor, but it still does have pretty good numbers across the board. But I think I like the L38 Falcon a little bit more. Stocks, we don't really have a great stock here. The stockless mod I didn't mention for the Vaznev, but basically no stock for these weapons just murders the recoil, and it's more intangibles than what you can see in the stats here. It definitely makes them worse than just a 35% increase to vertical and horizontal recoil. Even though it has great stats, I stay away from those because those are going to make me miss shots. So I personally don't use those. And then the other stocks here just aren't great for SMGs. This one would be okay, but it hurts your sprint and tac sprint speed. So I mean, I don't really think that's worth it. So this is one of those cases, actually, I should mention this while we're here. So it hurts, in percentage-wise, it hurts your sprint speed and your tac sprint speed, but then it also says it adds some meters per second. So that's because in this game, some stats add, some stats multiply. This one actually has stats for both of those that does both. So it does actually reduce the sprint speed by 2%, but then it's going to add an extra 0.02 meters per second. So I don't know if that's a mistake or what, but it's just weird there that they have those extra little addition things. So they've got both stats. There's a percentage-wise one and an addition one, but overall, I don't really think those are worth using. There's just not a lot of great attachments for this gun. Rear grip, same thing here. We don't have that grip that I like so much that helps with sprint to fire and ADS speed. So, I mean, it's kind of a toss-up here. So I think there's enough attachments that you can just put the optic on there. And then really, the last attachment probably needs to be the mag. So 40-round mag or 50-round drum. Both pretty good options. Obviously, the 40-round. So the 40-round mag is going to have more damage per mag than the Fennec did at 45 rounds, and your reload time will be better with this. So I probably will stick with the 40. But obviously, if you want that comfort of even more damage per mag, you can go with the 50. It's just really going to slow you down. And again, with this build, because of the X10RR40, the ADS time is not going to be great, 280 milliseconds. So if you don't like that, basically, I would recommend taking off that suppressor, and then there's really no other attachments for this that are like super valuable. So I would say just put this rear grip, the Lachmann TCG10, helps with your recoil and hurts aiming stability. That'd be what I would recommend. I mean, it's just going to make you a little more accurate, so it's a positive, but there's nothing else that's like amazing for an SMG to put on there in the place of that muzzle. Tunings for the Lachmann sub. For the suppressor, we've got minus 0.45 ounces towards ADS time, plus 0.32 inches towards bullet velocity. For the barrel, minus 0.12 pounds towards aimed walking speed, minus 0.4 inches towards ADS speed. For the laser, all the way down towards sprint to fire speed, and then minus 26.32 zeroing distance for ADS speed. Optic, again, I tuned towards flinch resistance, so 2.52 ounces towards flinch resistance, and then all the way to the left, close versus far. Personal preference there. But this is pretty solid. It's going to have a little slower ADS, just like that Vaznev did, but it's not bad, and it does have better mobility than the Vaznev. The reload is not great, but it's not awful. It's definitely better than the old Fennec was, so it's a good build for sure. Now, if you do want to get that ADS time up, like I said, just take this muzzle off and probably put on the recoil control rear grip. I mean, that's just going to make your ADS time much more snappy. Let's tune this real fast towards ADS speed. So really it just happens right at the start right there, and then towards sprint to fire speed. That one keeps getting better all the way to the end, so we'll go all the way to the end with that. And if we pop back into the firing range, ADS time is much better now, much snappier. Recoil is going to be a little better as well. So I mean, it's a good choice. It's hard to balance those two options between the suppressor and then getting better ADS time by removing that, or in the Vaznev's case, the barrel. All right, everybody, I really do think these builds that I've given you are very difficult to beat. The only thing would be swapping out either the barrel or the suppressor for something that makes your ADS time faster. Those are the only things I think really are worth considering. The rest of the builds are pretty set in stone. I don't think there's a lot of options that are better than that. So hope you guys get out there and you dominate your games with these things. But I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next video.